By PC Pod or Pad, you are listening to, and quite possibly watching, Pay to Play. I am Rob Farker, your host for this exploration of the dangerous idea that bringing your whole self, especially the parts that you worry make you seem silly, geeky or odd, into your income-generating life is one of the best things you can do. It might not be easy, but it's easier than we think and even fear. It's a fun thought that my last post on the Pay to Play website was about packing up my sound gear and leaving it aside for a while. And instead, barely a day after doing that, it's virtually all unpacked, set up and recording again. And that kind of ties into today's subject. There's something that I put on every post on the Pay to Play website for a podcast episode, and usually when I write a text-only blog post, and that's, what's your play? It's usually my signal that a question for my listeners and readers is going to come up next, or a few questions. But I sort of realised that that's maybe something that I want to be asking you all. If you saw the last episode that I put up, which was the late episode 70, just a couple of days ago as I record this, I mentioned a cosplayer by the name of Yaya Han. And when I mentioned her, I did so in the context of how people tend to ask her about how she became a professional cosplayer, and how she usually replies that when she was becoming a cosplayer as a profession didn't really exist. At the very least, it didn't exist in the States. She was basically just doing what she loved to do, and doing it because she wanted to keep doing it, and because she wanted to get better at it. And that's something that perhaps I've kind of realised with the Pay to Play podcast, and again I touched on that last episode. I want to keep doing it basically because I enjoy doing it, because I like chatting with people about the things that they love doing, and the challenge of getting better at the art of podcasting. It's something that perhaps flies in the face of attempts to monetize Pay to Play, and thinking about ways that other people monetize their podcasts, whether it's through advertising or product placement or anything like that. And that is what I want to ask you folks about. What is it that you do on a regular basis that you do just for the, getting tongue-tied, you do just for its own sake? What are the things that you have sacrificed sleep, family time, perhaps even day job time for, that you just needed another 5 minutes to do, and then you closed your eyes, and when you looked up again, you found that instead of 5 minutes, 3 hours had gone by. You started at 7 o'clock at night, and next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock the next morning, and you've been so busy doing your thing and putting your energy into it, you hadn't noticed that so many hours had flown by. Even if the thing that you were doing was hard work, was sweaty work, was frustrating work, you just got lost in doing it. That's really the kind of thing that I want to get at with this podcast. I talked about not wanting to focus on specific careers as such, little boxes that maybe we try and fit ourselves into when we're thinking about the ways that we might get paid to play, the ways that we can turn our loves into things that other people will pay for. I don't want to ask you folks about that. I just want to ask you about the things that you are actually doing. Especially if, when the idea of getting paid to play crosses your mind, your first thought is, that'll never work, no one will pay me to do that. Or maybe when you suggest it to other people, that's their first thought, don't give up your day job, mate, you'll never earn any kind of income doing that. That's why I look at this as a dangerous idea. The idea that all the conventional wisdom might be wrong, and that maybe you can find enough people out there who like what you do, the way you do it as is. Even if you do want to, improve at your craft of doing the thing, the basic concept of that thing is enough that other people will enjoy what you do. So please, folks, I would really like to hear back from you on this. I know I have asked for feedback in the past, but really, no matter how silly or geeky or odd, and this is a fun thing, usually around about this time of year, it's the 2nd of January, I think by now in most places around the world, even if it's just ticked over midnight. And of course everyone is talking about goal setting and resolutions. I don't want to know about your goals. I want to know about what you're already doing, what you've been doing. Maybe the things that during the day you've been at work on other things and at the back of your mind been mulling over the thing that you like to do. Letting it steep, percolate, digest at the back of your mind, so that the next time when you get back to it, you're coming back with a fresh mindset for it. And it doesn't matter what the thing is. Is it a game? Is it playing World of Warcraft? Is it something more obscure and less seemingly shareable? Even if the market is glutted, what is it that you've come back and not been able to stop doing? And again, like I said, no matter how silly or geeky or odd you worry it makes you seem, as far as I'm concerned, as long as it doesn't threaten the physical or mental well-being of another human being or any other life form for that matter, even if people might, look at you askance for suggesting it as something that you might like to do, even if you're worried about some kind of general backlash, and let's face it, we all have those fears, but perhaps some of us might look at the mainstream and feel like that they've got more grounds for fear of some kind of backlash from friends and family, from other people. Stuff it, I would still like to hear back from you. As long as what you love doing doesn't actively and directly harm other human beings, except perhaps in that it might rattle their cages as to what might be socially acceptable a bit. And please, if you otherwise do feel comfortable putting it up in the comments feed of the Pay to Play website, if you want to discuss it on the Facebook page for the Pay to Play podcast, or you'd like to join the fans of the Pay to Play podcast page, I would like to hear back from you, because I think one of the things that I struggled with last season was trying to sort people into pigeonholes and maybe look at helping people who would like to get Pay to Play purely based on what was an easily identifiable category of paid play that people could fit into. I would like to hear not just about your thing, but also if you are taking steps toward getting paid to play, what those steps are, what your successes are, what your struggles and seeming missteps have been, what the lessons you've learned, and yes, how you've struggled with trying to present your play generally. How perhaps you have had some negative feedback from people, or perhaps how you found encouragement in the most unlikely places. What is your play? Please, folks, let me know. What is it? No matter how trivial, no matter how, even if you are doing it purely just for play's sake, and you haven't even thought about how you could possibly get paid to do it, let's face it, fishing a little bit for mailbag content. I would like to perhaps read these things out in an episode of the podcast. Feel free to email me directly at robf@robf.com.au. Share it on the website, on the comments thread. I would like to hear back from you with regard to it. And I think even if you do feel like you're on your own doing it, sometimes sharing it does help. And again, you might be able to find support in the most unexpected of quarters. So please, I'd love to hear from you, and I am sure there are heaps of others who would too. And you know what? I think fair's fair. If I'm asking you to do something that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, maybe I do need to talk a little bit more about the play that I've been doing. Let's face it, there is this podcast right now. It is, let me just do a quick time check, 7:45 at night. I did have this stuff all packed away, but the urge to record this episode struck me, and I wanted to get it done. In the recent past, I have been getting in touch with some folks about game mastering some tabletop RPGs, and that is something that is uncomfortable for me. I have been struck with the perfectionist urge so many times. I have proposed organising campaigns on multiple occasions, got as far as character creation, got people interested, maybe run a session, and then my perfectionist streak has struck and I've cancelled everything, walked away, backed off. In part, it is because game mastering is a complex endeavour. Even if you want to try and do a low preparation system like some of the independent games that are out there, there is a certain onness that you need, for want of a better word. You have to have energy, it's got to keep going, and I have found, and a couple of people have mentioned it to me, that if you are using a complicated set of rules like Dungeons and Dragons, there is a benefit there because it kind of gives you something that you can rest on if you are not at 100%, like games like perhaps The Shadow of Yesterday or Don John or Dogs in the Vineyard require you to be, because you're more improving 100% of the time. Playing D&D and having the books and resources for monsters and adventures and dungeons and places that you can go helps a little bit in sustaining 4 hours of play when maybe you and your players aren't feeling like you could go 100% on engaging on what's going on with the emotional lives of your characters and hitting their buttons. It's nice to be able to just work around the basic premise of being a wandering pack of mercenaries who have a job to do, or an adventuring party that's got a specific goal to achieve. So I am working on that. I'm actually working on an adventure for the game Deathwatch, which you can see the core rulebook for behind me, and I've also been asking a couple of friends in Melbourne whether they'd be interested in doing some D&D or Pathfinder, and this is still kind of scary stuff. I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to go to all this hard work of setting up a game and investing my money in the $80 or $90 that it would cost me to get my hands on the Pathfinder core rulebook. So that is kind of what I'm working on. So I think I've hit the 15-minute mark without editing, and that's about time I need to wind this up. So again, if you haven't heard me speak about all the places that you can come to comment and discuss, there is the Pay to Play website where you can comment, the Pay to Play podcast page on both Facebook and Google+. There is the Fans of the Pay to Play podcast group on Facebook. It's an open group. You have to apply for membership, but I will most likely let you in anyway, and as long as you behave in a non-dickish manner to everybody else who is there, then that will be cool. You can tweet at me. My Twitter handle is @ByRobF. I think that about sums up the places that I exist in line. Oh, and of course, Patreon. If you are a patron especially, I would love to hear from you guys about the play that you do. And if you sign up, even if it's at the $1 a month level, you will have access to the Paid to Play wall, and you can post about your own adventures in getting paid to play there. And I would love your support for the podcast. Anyway, for the time being, unless I get any bright ideas that I must get in front of the camera of or in front of a microphone of and record for you folks, this will be it for the moment until I get some guests lined up. But for the time being, I think I will simply say this is Rob Farker encouraging you to stand by your play. You never know just who might appreciate it.